you grow up with a dream, something that you always want to do. So you just didn't really want any outside factor to affect that. And you pretty much try to withstand anything you could. That and, saying and being able to play a game for a living, even if it's just for a short time, is something special.
Tyler Johnson pitched 3 seasons with the Gamecocks and was a dominant closer. He represented the United States on the collegiate national team, and he's overcome a couple of surgeries while chasing his dream of professional baseball. Now he's transitioning to life after baseball. He joins us today on Gamecock Talk. All right, Tyler, appreciate you coming back, and I guess you're coming back to where it started. Understand you're getting ready to come back to school.
Yes, yeah, I've got into school for this summer, and I'm going to knock out some classes and hopefully finish up this fall.
Part of the Gamecock degree completion program, and I know that was something that was important for you at some point when you left Carolina. You were eventually going to come back and get your degree. I think you said you had that written into your contract. Tell us about that.
Right, yeah, so it's always nice for, you come to school and you're able to pursue a career potentially into professional sports. It's always nice to have that parachute back down and always have this option available to finish up and kind of bridge the gap into figuring out what you want to do in the real world. So it's just another one of those things that makes the university great, where you can kind of come back and decide what you want to do.
Well, let's talk about, we're going to talk a lot about baseball, but tell us what you're going to finish your degree in and maybe what you're looking to do once you complete your degree.
Yeah, so at school, I was in the School of Public Health and still am, and will get my degree in public health. I have an eye to finish up in a PT, physical therapy track. So I definitely want to keep working with athletes and, maybe hopefully keep them from running into some of the issues that I did, or if they do, then help them out there.
Well, we'll talk about some of those issues, the injuries and such that are bound to happen throughout a long career that you've had. But going back, what's it going to be like? I know you're going to do some classes online, but some classes I think you'll have to be here. What's it going to be like? You're going to be the old guy on campus now, right?
I know, yeah. I was actually, one of the classes I had left was an entry-level anthropology class, which I was really hoping that I didn't have to go into that class, because I'd probably be the oldest person in there by about 9 or 10 years. So that's good.
Well, let's go back now. You were one of the top 25 prospect coming out of high school in Virginia, and at that time, some guys decide they're going to go professional early and sign a contract to play baseball right out of high school. Why was playing college baseball the right move for you?
Yeah, coming out of high school, I wasn't fully developed like a lot of high school athletes, although I feel like nowadays that's changing. But I definitely needed a year to 3 years to grow into my own body and kind of what I was able to do here. So that, and on top of some parent influence, we decided to come to school. It was pretty easy. We didn't really have that many professional options. And when a school like South Carolina came along, it was really just an easy call to make.
Talk about the transition. Most freshmen aren't going to be impactful right away, and you had to pay your dues your first year, but then by your second and third year with the Gamecocks, you were a dominant pitcher, primarily as a closer coming out of the bullpen, although you did start a couple of games in your career. Talk about that transition and going from star high school athlete and then having to make that transition to SEC baseball.
Yeah, I would just say, the transition is something that everybody's got to go through. Obviously, I came here and I felt like I was, at some point you got to look in the mirror, and you might be talented at baseball, but I was vastly undersized. And once I kind of realized that, I kind of took my freshman year, and, some people want to feel good or be ready for that one opportunity their freshman year to kind of break into the system. I kind of gambled and took a different route, and really focused in the weight room and like in my fitness. And I got to the point where it was like, okay, I'm going to get this work in, and if I have to throw and maybe my legs aren't feeling it from a workout, and we'll have to make do. Coach Holbrook might be a little mad at me for that one, but because it's obviously your job to be ready. But at some point, you kind of got to sacrifice a little bit of the now for the future, and it definitely paid out for me. And that was something that really changed my career. Just like some of the late night lifts after the games, when guys would go home, or something before the games, not being scared to kind of push that limit.
What was it like going into that role that you became an excellent relief pitcher coming out of the bullpen? Most kids when they come out of high school, they're obviously starters, and then I guess does it take a different mindset to accept that role, and what's the difference for you physically?
No, I would say it's really the same mindset. I was just fired up just to get into anything at the time. And then once you kind of grow into the role, and I started closing games, and you gotta like slam the door shut on, Florida or Vanderbilt or some of these, blue blood SEC teams. I mean, it does take a little bit of craziness. You kind of sometimes you might black out. You can ask probably your players now. I'm sure they got some blacking out going on. So you just kind of flip a switch. But I'll tell you, I remember my sophomore year in the fall, I was still getting innings like a starter. And I remember Jerry Myers, telling me, hey, you're going to come out of the pen, but I want you to do something. I want you to throw as hard as you can. And it was like from that point on, we were like, man, okay, that ball came out really well. That was the hardest I'd thrown all fall. It was the best I threw all fall. And we were just able to compound things from there.
And 19 saves in your last 2 seasons with the Gamecocks. Do you remember what your walkout or warm-up song was? You talked about blacking out. Do you remember any of that?
Yeah. I think I changed it a couple times my sophomore year. But junior year I went a little hefty and did like a Purge Siren remix, which I feel like I started this trend because now I feel like I hear it everywhere. But it was definitely something that I don't know if it fired me up as much as other teams, but it was definitely bold, and I don't know if I would do it again, but I don't take it back because it was a lot of fun.
It's fun being young, right? Yeah. Well, for your career, I think you had a 3-to-1 strikeout to walk ratio. What was here at South Carolina? What were the keys to being that consistent and dominant? I
would just say you just got to be in the zone. Obviously, my pitching philosophy changed a little bit more as you get in the pro ball, where you got to start mixing pitches and keeping guys off balance and being in the zone. But in college, if you're able to be in the zone or around it and just keep yourself in the counts, you'll always have a chance. Because you just won't necessarily get as punished. So you just always want to give yourself a chance. Guys will put balls in play 3-1 or 2-1. So being in and around the zone is the biggest.
As a pitcher at any level, whether it's college or pro baseball, what's the bigger challenge? The physical side of things or the mental side of things?
That's a really good question. I think it really depends on where you are. I think, like, if you take my career, for example, when I first came here, physical demand was very hard for me. So I had to do things to attack that. As I went into pro ball and started, making my way up, and especially towards the end, the mental side of the sport was way, way harder than the physical side. I could do the physical side when I was healthy all day. But I would say athletics, and it's especially coming into light now, comes with a variety of mental challenges that an athlete will have to overcome from a whole lot of different angles. You could speak forever on that, but so it just depends. But it takes some self-awareness as an athlete to kind of decide, what side you need to work on.
You had, I'm sure, some memorable moments here, and we'll talk some of those, but maybe your signature moment that fans will remember Came in the postseason, the Gamecocks in 2016. I guess your sophomore year here, the Gamecocks got to the Super Regional. You were the MVP of the regional. You pitched in relief, I think, against Duke, and then the next day you get the start. It was your only start all year against UNC Wilmington. You throw a complete game, had a whole bunch of strikeouts. I think gave up just one run. What do you recall about that?
I recall I was just fired up to close out the game against Duke to start, and then the next day, I didn't really think that I was going to pitch at all, to be honest, because it was 1+. It was 1+ innings, so I didn't know if I was completely on the docket. And I remember Sammy Esposito walking up to me in the dugout when we were, I think we were beating the snot out of like Rhode Island or something. And he's like, "Hey, you good to throw today?" And I was like, "Yeah, I could throw one or two, if you need." And he goes, "Okay," and then he just like walks away. And then I swear it was like maybe 2 innings later, he goes, "Hey, you're gonna start this next game." And I was like, "Okay, that's fine." And in my head, I'm thinking 2-3 innings, get the boys off to a good start, and then call it in. And I remember getting a 3, and Coach Myers walking up to me. He's like, "Hey, you got one more. Like, we don't need you to do too much." And I'm like, I got another. That's fine. And then another compounded to another. Next thing you know, it's the 6th inning, and I'm like, well, I'm already done for tournament now. Like, you might as well just save the guys in the back, on the back end. And so at that point, there's just a certain point where it's like, okay, well, I'm just gonna throw as hard as I can for the rest of the game. And then the innings just compounded on each other. So that was definitely one of my favorite memories, if not the favorite memory I have playing the game. So it's definitely something I hold close.
Yeah, 11 strikeouts in that game, in that complete game win. Do you remember what was working for you, or was it just you're just in your zone and just you're playing catch out there? What was that?
So I remember, I remember my slider and changeup working for me that game, and that was something out of the pen. As a hard thrower, I had a bit of an issue with getting that going right away, but having a start and then having the pitches to kind of develop it as the game went on definitely played in my favor. And I remember specifically, getting some good swings and misses on sliders and having the pitches help.
Let's turn the page a little bit. You would also pitch for the Team USA collegiate national baseball team. Tell us about that experience. Where did you go, and what was that like?
Yeah, so that experience was awesome. And I actually got a chance to play with USA down the road in pro ball as well, so that opened the door for that. But we went to Taiwan, Japan, and Cuba. We were actually the first USA affiliated baseball team to win in Cuba. So that was something that the program was proud of. But I'll tell you what, and I think it's coming into light, especially with the recent World Baseball Classic, is that those games are very fun and meaningful to athletes. And playing in those games is something special. Just to put your country across your chest is a little bit different. It's where you're from, and you have a huge sense of pride. So I talk about how that regional outing was one of my favorites. Playing USA baseball is right up there too. That's something that I can always kind of say and get people taken back. So it's something I really enjoyed.
Do you still have some of the Team USA gear?
I do, yeah. I think I've lost a couple items throughout the years. Probably to my siblings, but obviously, over pro ball span, I couldn't travel with everything I wanted to keep, so I think people scavenged it through them. But I still have stuff, and we got a ring for that series win in Cuba, so those are all super cool items that I have.
Well, in 2017, you're taken in the 5th round by the White Sox. I think one of 3 Gamecock pitchers they're drafted that season with I think Will Crow and Clark Schmidt were drafted that same year as well. What was the biggest transition for you going from college baseball to professional baseball?
It was, I'd say, the sheer number of games. In college, I thought 58, 60 games was a lot. And then you get in the pro ball and you're playing 140 plus or 160. The sheer number of games and the travel and just the physical wear is a bit overwhelming. And I think if you look at my career, it a bit tells a story. I wasn't ever really able to get on top of it. And that is what it is. It takes a special type of durability to play the game. And on my side of things, if I look at guys who have been playing for forever, it makes it that more impressive, because the game is not, something that you just can easily get through. You got to take care of yourself and really know what you're doing. So I would say that was just the biggest thing.
Well, obviously, you spent a lot of time at the higher level in minor league baseball, AA and AAA for most of your career. But early on, I guess rookie ball and single A. You have any Bull Durham type of stories of the unglamorous side of that level of baseball?
Yeah. So I remember it was actually the first half season. So I was right out of college, in college we were able to fly to some places, and if we bussed, it was a nice bus and relatively easy, stayed at a nice hotel. But I remember playing a game in Kannapolis, and we finished up at about like 12:30, 12:45. And we left to go to Woodlake, New Jersey, which I think was like an 8 or 11 hour, 10-hour drive up. We drove through the night, slept on the bus, and we pretty much show and go the next day. So I just remember it being brutal. When you leave, it's nighttime, you drive through the night, and you're checking into a hotel when the sun's coming up was a different animal. So if you're ever at a minor league game and you get some guys that are grumpy, just be nice to them.
Was there ever a point when you thought, what have I gotten myself into?
Yes, yeah. There's several. I mean, I remember just the first game I played in pro ball. We were in Helena, Montana, and like I walked into the locker room. I was like, this is just not it. You go from this nice stadium and everything that we have here, and locker rooms, and we're essentially put in closets with no AC in the summer, with fans blowing, and hot sandwiches.
Wow.
So, hopefully the game is taking a step in the right direction to help those guys. But that there's some brutal stories for sure.
Well, what kept you going? Because obviously you were able to advance, out of rookie ball and single A, and as you said, spent a lot of time in double and triple A. Well, what kept you going?
You grow up with a dream, something that you always wanted to do. So you just didn't really want any outside factor to affect that. And you pretty much try to withstand anything you could. That and, saying and being able to play a game for a living, even if it's just for a short time, is something special. So, as much suck as it had, it also had its fun times and could definitely pay out in the end. And those guys and minor leaguers and baseball players just have a lot of kid in them. So they never really want to give that up. And, you can embrace the suck for some opportunity.
Well, you've had some bad luck towards the end of your career with injury, which is going to happen, I guess, the longer you play a sport and do what you do. Tell us a little bit about the injuries you've had and I guess, the impact that had on you.
Yeah, so obviously injury is an athlete's greatest adversity. It's, something that's inevitable. hopefully, as an athlete, you don't go through it. Hopefully, if you do go through it, it's only once. I got to go through it a lot of times. So it was, it was unfortunate, but I know in post-COVID or during COVID, I was up with the alt site team up in Chicago and got to do a lot of cool things there. And, we had that break, obviously. And then as soon as we got back into minor league baseball, I was in Charlotte and essentially went down with a knee injury right away. Had arthroscopic knee surgery that ended my year that year. And then I was able to come back. I think I pushed the button a little bit to make it back, even just with my knee injury for 2022, and was playing and ended up partially tearing my my UCL. So that ended my 2022 year, and it was just been a brutal road from that standpoint. But I would say you learn a lot, and you learn kind of who's in your corner and who you got around you. And as an athlete, that's all you can ask for is that support staff.
So as you transition now, we talked about you going back to school, and then now you're transitioning to life after baseball. How tough has that been? I know you're still early in that process, but you've been playing this game all your life, and now all of a sudden, all right, now it's time. You know it comes at some point, but now it's time. What's that been like for you so far?
Yeah, you knew it was coming at some point, but I was hoping, that I wouldn't have to. I mean, we sit here today. I'm not even sure. I tell you I want to work with athletes and do PT, but am I 100% bought in on doing that? No, I don't know what I want to do. I was hoping this year I could come back and, play baseball while I figured it out. It's kind of my new outlook on the sport. Just play as long as I could. There's no pressure. But that process has been sped up, but we're still going to have to take a step back and really figure it out. But, we got all the time in the world. I'm 27, which seems old, but so I'll get a late start into the real world, but we'll be all right.
How much do you still, over the years or even now that you're transitioning from baseball, how much do you watch baseball, whether it's the Gamecocks, pro baseball, or all that?
Yeah, so I have followed South Carolina sports and baseball, obviously, ever since leaving. I'm very supportive. I like seeing my alma mater do well and everything. It gives me a bragging point to my friends and my family. My family pretty much all went to Virginia Tech. So I get to hold over their head that we're a better athletic program altogether, as well as my friends. So, I take big pride into that. But obviously this year's baseball team has just been outstanding.
Yeah, knock wood. It's been a lot of fun to watch. And, do you find yourself when you're watching a game, especially young guys that are out here, thinking about what you would do, or do memories come up from your day when you see a pitcher out here, when you see a Will Sanders or anything like that?
No, I kind of have a different viewpoint. I enjoy seeing what the kids do now. I think there's a lot of different ways to go about whatever you run into in a game or what they do in a game. I think just from watching on TV, this team's very fiery.
Yeah.
I was a very fiery player here as well. So, I always get and understand that. So it's just fun to watch.
Well, you had some great news, life-changing event earlier this year, or I guess at the end of last year, right? Recently got married?
Yes, yeah. Married Miss Jeannie, and who I dated here and who I met in high school. We had a New Year's Eve wedding. It was very beautiful, and so I've lasted 3 months, and we only have a lifetime to go.
There you go. Well, you've survived so far, but
Yeah.
you're never going to forget your anniversary now, right?
No.
Yeah, pretty.
No, not no. And actually, we got married. It was New Year's Eve, but that was we got married 10 years to the date that we met. So we met at New Year's 10 years from when we got married. So it was cool event, cool day, and something that'll be really easy to remember.
Yeah, there you go. Excellent. All right. Well, I know you're still figuring things out, and maybe what you want to do. But where would you like to see yourself maybe a year or two from now? If you don't know the exact thing you want to do, maybe it's just finish having your degree done and that in the rear view mirror, or established somewhere in a particular part of the country or city. Where do you want to see yourself in a year or two?
Yeah, well, you mentioned like where in the country. I've always been a warm weather person. I came from Virginia down to South Carolina. We lived in Arizona, Phoenix for 3 years, and we're now in Charleston. So I'm a very warm weather person. So hopefully, wherever I am, I hope it's somewhere south. And but yeah, I personally really enjoy athletes and what athletes do. I think it's one of the coolest things to be able to see what a lot of work and fine detail put together can do, and hopefully I can stick around athletes, whether it's PT, track, or help any way I can. Coaching's always on the table. I don't know if I want to coach high school, but maybe something collegiately will come along. I like to think I'm pretty smart in the baseball world. I've certainly seen it and been around it. So I don't know. There's a lot of different avenues.
Get you in the broadcast booth as well, maybe, right?
Yeah, I don't know if I'm extroverted enough.
Were you superstitious at all as a player? Or?
Yes, I was very superstitious, especially here. But as I got into pro ball, you play so much. There's just no way that you can possibly do everything the same way or whatever way you want to do it. So in fact, it's kind of reversed. It kind of messes with you. Like if you don't do this, you're like, oh, well, I'm screwed for the day. So I became superstitious about not being superstitious. So I would pretty much just like mess everything up on purpose just so I would have a clean set for the day.
Well, Tyler, good luck to you in the future. I appreciate you joining us.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me. It's been awesome.
All right, that's Tyler. I'm Brad. Thanks for joining us on Gamecock Talk.